think of, it was when we were, see, we lived in Owasso that time.
Owasso?
Not near Owasso, yeah. We had an old, what they call a buffet, so we call it a sideboard. Now you'd call it a buffet. But underneath was where we kept the dishes and stuff for our dining room table. And my dad used to buy, instead of going buying cheese by the pound or whatever, he'd buy it by the round. You've seen it in the stores, these big rounds of cheese. Right. And he'd keep that in the bottom of the sideboard. And you know, Tim, that never spoiled, that never got moldy, and with no refrigeration.
Was there air in it?
There.
Where was that kept again? It was in the...
Just in the bottom of that old cupboard, the sideboard.
Like on a shelf? Was it?
No, just like a look, open up the bottom doors.
Okay.
And in here was the cheese.
Yeah.
And if we kids get hungry, why go cut off a piece of cheese and eat it. But it never got moldy. And now you buy anything like that, you don't keep it in the refrigerator, it's spoiled in 2 weeks.
Unless it's Velveeta.
Why is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
After you once open it, it gets moldy if you don't use it.
And now that stuff never got...
I wonder if it was just cool in there, cool enough to keep the mold from growing, or...
room temperature. We had no such thing as air conditioning then.
The cheese molds in the refrigerator.
I know, but and that's what I can't understand, why that it didn't mold.
I don't know.
Now I thought you were saying at one point, maybe you were telling Amy that you had to go you were picking blueberries. What's that?
Apples, I think. Apples.
When you were a little kid? I'm curious what your oldest memory is.
My oldest memory?
Yeah.
Oh, Moses. I think the thing that I can remember farthest back would probably be while my mother was in Traverse City. I can remember in the wintertime, my dad.
So that was between when you were 3 and 6?
Yes. Between I was 3 and 6. I can remember my dad taking us back in the field in the wintertime, and there had been ice frozen over, and he'd take us on a sled, and he would start running along with us, pulling the sled with us kids on, let go, and it would spin and go across that pond, and us kids, and that was the biggest thrill I guess we ever had in our lifetime. And I can remember that, and I can remember another thing. And across this road from us were people named Smith, and there was quite a deep ditch over there. And in the summertime, and I guess probably in warm weather, water flowed underneath there. But then in the wintertime, it would start to freeze over, the water would settle, and there would be quite a space between what little water there was left and this ice that had frozen. And us kids used to go and crawl in that ice, crawl underneath that shelf of ice in that deep old ditch. Why we did that, I'll never know.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
That's one of the other things I remember.
Sounds pretty dangerous.
I know we had a housekeeper, her name was Mrs. Tompkins. She was one special lady. She was with us the longest while my mother was gone. And that's, when she was there, was the first time that I ever remember that we had a Christmas tree. She seen to it that we got a Christmas tree, and then I got a doll. And that's the only doll I can ever remember having in my childhood, was that doll. I remember mine had white, yellow hair, and this had black, brown hair. But you know what we had for a doll carriage? An old shoebox. And it had a string put it in. We put the doll in the shoebox and pulled it along. That was a doll.
Kind of puts perspective on the toys kids have today.
Yeah, I know.
Cullen's toys.
Yeah.
Scattered about our house.
Yeah.
Or your house in here.
I know.
But that's the only time that only doll I ever got. And I know that's while that lady was there. It was the first time I ever had a birthday party. My birthday's in June, and I remember, and I got a book. And what I got for a book that year was called Little Prudy.
Little Prudy?
Uh-huh.
What was that?
I know a story
remember-
about
you don't remember
a
what the
little
book was?
Story about a little girl named Prudy. I don't remember much about it. But you know, I thought about my dad often. Now, my dad, I don't know how old he was. He couldn't have been very old. Could he?
At what time do you mean?
At
When
that
your,
time.
when your mother was gone?
When you were
Yes.
between 3 and 6?
How old was he?
He must have been 40, wasn't he? How
What
old
year
was
was
he
That
when-
was in 1923.
What was 1923?
You see, I was born 1910, 1913, when my mother went away.
Yeah.
So, I don't know when he was, how old he was. But you know, he was comparatively young man. No wife. And I thought, I wonder if he liked Mrs. Tompkins. I wonder, I kind of thought about it. And I wondered, in later years, I thought, I remember if he liked her. She was there the longest.
Do you know how old he was when you were born? You don't?
No, I don't.
What year was he
It
born?
seems to me he was born in 18. Let's see. Wasn't it 18? What would put it in 1868? That kind of goes in my mind.
So he'd have been
About
42 when you were
42.
born.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think 1868. I think was the year of his birth.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was born 1910.
Hmm.
How old was your mom when you were born?
I don't know.
She
Tell you the
was
truth, I
she
don't
was she was quite a bit younger than your dad.
know. Yeah,
wasn't
wasn't
she?
there 8 years difference?
8.
I think there were 8 years difference in there.
Hmm.
So she was in her early 30s when she went into that asylum.
We put people in asylum for postpartum depression
Did they ever come out? Did she ever come out? She ever came out?
in 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, she's only been for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But she was always such a quick-tempered person. Uneasy and always having to. I remember when the neighbor said, "Well, her name should be Mrs. Going instead of Mrs. Going." She wanted to be on the go all the time. Very temperamental, I'd say. About the only time I ever remember her being mad at me about anything, I probably would be in a brat about something. And she threw a comb at me. And
comb?
It was a comb.
A metal comb?
A metal comb, and
Mhm.
it cut me in the head, you know. Of course, I had to go tell my dad,
Yeah.
and he asked me what I'd done to make her angry, and I said, I don't remember what I told him, but I think probably he had to talk to her later about it.
Mm-hmm.
What every kid would say, I didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm completely innocent.
And you've told Tim how you lived in a tent that one
Oh,
summer?
that was awful.
You lived in a tent when you were a kid? Well, you said you lived in a tent.
No, that was
No.
after Lyle and I were married.
Right.
That was the start of the Depression. That was summer after she was born.
So how did you live in, where did you get a tent and where could you put a tent back then?
Where did we put it?
Yeah.
Out on the farm where Lyle's brother lived. He lived out in the country, Lynn. One of the things that I remember his wife cooking, and can you imagine, was a muskrat. And I went in her house one day, and that house smelled like pee. And she was cooking muskrat.
You had to eat. Had to have something to
They were
eat.
gonna have us to eat.
Yes.
How
Wow.
did she cook it? Boil it, I guess?
Put it in the oven?
So, Tim, the life is different now. Just
Yeah.
think how different.
Mm-hmm.
So what's so different? So I was trying to think what you were saying was the 90 years you've seen as the biggest change.
Biggest change. Telephone?
What were you saying?
The biggest change,
Yeah, the biggest thing you've seen is different.
I don't know. I think the biggest change I've seen is transportation. and morals.
So transportation is
From horse and buggy to speed of sound planes.
going to the moon. So how are morals different? Probably goes without saying, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. Like everybody, I'm not speaking about everybody, but I don't know. The morals are anything goes. You know, I don't see that sometimes. But yeah, things the speed of sound. If instead of horse and buggies like we used to go to town, a horse and buggy, and in the winter was a horse and sleigh. It was an all-day trip to go to 5 miles to town. But behind the horses. In the wintertime, my dad put the horses, he had stables there in Midland, and they had a place to put the horses in the shelter where they'd keep them warm while they did their trading, got their groceries.
Now I fly 15 hours to Japan
Yeah.
in a single day.
And once in a while, if they had a nickel, we could go to the show while they did their trading.
Oh, that's one thing that's interesting. How much did things cost when you were?
That was one thing I remember. You could go to the movies for a nickel. And we used to see cowboy pictures. They didn't have these crazy things they have now.
So cowboy pictures. So when was this? You were going to the theater. It was when. Were they silent movies then?
Yes, if you couldn't read, you weren't. you
You're-
couldn't enjoy it too much. What they were saying was put on the screen.
So what year was that? When did you start
That
going to
was
movies?
that was when I was about WC. We moved away from there when I was 10. So I was.
1920.
So what do you remember about prices of food? Anything?
No, I don't remember about prices of food.
Mhm.
But wages must have been quite a bit. I mean, wages
I
must have
don't
been
know
quite
if
a bit
anybody
different.
did any. Of course, we lived out in the country, and so I don't know.
You told about Daddy working for a certain length of time and how much money he got for.
Where?
He worked in the fields for somebody.
Who?
And your Daddy, he got paid so much for the crops at the end of the season.
Oh, that was that summer of the Depression. We lived in a tent. He and his dad put in that 40 acres of beans for a farmer. They planted them, took care, cultivated them, and harvested them for $40. Some of these were.
Planted them, cultivated, and harvested them for $40. So what could you buy for $40 back then?
You could buy a lot. You could buy a pound of coffee for 17 cents.
Pound of coffee for 17 cents. What's
Yeah.
Starbucks
Jeez,
cost
a
now?
pound of coffee right now will cost you, I don't know, it's $10.
It's not what they pay
For
the.
the good stuff.
It's not what they pay the Colombians down in Colombia. But
You could get sausage for about 6 cents a pound. And
6 cents a pound.
I can remember that. The coffee was 3 pounds for 39 cents. 8 o'clock.
Wow.
But you had to have 39 cents.
But you went. It sounds like you went for certain points where you didn't have any money when Grandpa was fishing or having to sell vegetables
What,
and.
you mean go through without any money at all?
Well, you sounded like you were. I mean,
We were never without any money at all. Your grandpa saw to that. In the wintertime, like I said, he hunted and he trapped. That was during the Depression. And it was a funny thing because fur would bring a pretty good price. If you get a good mink, it would be $10. And that was a fortune. But, and he would climb trees for get the raccoon. The raccoon would be in their den in the trees. And it was a cruel thing to do, but he would climb the trees. And he had a long rope with a what they call a grappling hook on the end of it. And he would hook it into that poor raccoon and pull it up out of there, shoot it, and take the pelt off, go sell the pelt.
and that's how you lived. That's not very different from people who were trappers who came here and, you know, 1700s.
Yeah, but, you know, there was people, if they had money at all, they had it, and they would spend it on fur, on a fur coat or something, but he never had any trouble getting rid of the pelts, you know.
And you would find mink just wild in Michigan back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine you would find mink now,
I don't know.
except on a farm.
Well, they live in the streams.
I don't think that you would find mink wild anymore.
I don't know. The muskrat we used to trap. I used to go with Lyle on the trap line, and he would trap for the muskrat and the mink too. And we'd catch them.
Just along the water.
Uh-huh.
He'd reach. I'd go too when I was about 19 years old. He'd reach his hands down in that icy water.
Uh-huh.
Those poor little animals were caught in traps in there.
Uh-huh.
When I was even 10, he was still doing that there on Schoolcraft Street.
Uh-huh.
You know, they have a garage full of animal pelts. They were stretched on a stretcher,
Mm-hmm.
wrong side out to dry
Wrong
them.
side out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She could have had a beautiful fur coat and never had one.
Yeah. Nearest I came to an animal hide was a deerskin jacket
Mhm.
once. Your dad had a jacket for himself and one for me made out of deerskin,
Hmm.
which was nice. They're soft, very soft.
So he'd hunt a deer and eat it and use the skin and everything, huh?
What?
I said, so he would hunt deer and you'd eat all the meat and he'd make coats out of the skin and everything?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
We used to make mincemeat out of deer. And
Mincemeat
Canada.
pies?
Hmm.
I never cared for mincemeat pie, but that was
Hey.
one of Grandpa's favorites.
I hate mincemeat pie.
Uh-huh.
Mom used to force it on us when I was little. I can still remember wondering why there was no fruit in it.
Uh-huh. The mincemeat I could eat mincemeat pie if it was made out of beef, but I never liked deer. I never could hardly bring myself to eat venison. I could not eat it.
I don't like venison either.
Just the thoughts of the poor deer.
He shot everything, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He hunted deer, pheasant, wild animals. He shot, what was that thing that charged him?
A moose.
The moose.
A moose.
He shot the moose.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And
Didn't he have to climb up a tree to get away from that
That
one?
was when the moose
Yeah.
was after him, yes.
Shot a moose and it charged him and he had to run. What was the story? He had to run and go up a tree? What
He
was
said
it?
he climbed up that tree, but the tree was bigger than 6 inches across. He says that moose came up and whammed into the tree and whoomp.
and it died.
It died. I think probably your dad shot him. I don't know. Maybe not to die, but he died.
So where did he hunt moose? Would he
Well-
go up into Canada or was that in Michigan?
That was in Michigan.
There's no
I
moose in
think. I'm not sure.
I don't think there's moose
I'm
in
not sure
Michigan
what
either
places
anymore.
he went.
Wild anymore. Big.
And then Junior went bear hunting. Didn't he go with Junior when they hunted bear?
They went bear hunting and they went antelope hunting. Antelope was one thing that your dad couldn't eat. He said that he was skinning it out and it stunk so bad that he just won't eat any antelope. Save the pelt.
It's pretty scary to go hunting bear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that bear rug my brother had,
Mhm.
Tim? He had a bear rug in front of the fireplace on the floor, a huge one. And up above the fireplace was a huge moose head.
Those are not the kind of things Amy would like to have in her house. Oh.
Well,
It was a great life.
But you had to, it sounds like you really had to, I mean, you had to hunt, I mean, for food and all that stuff, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when you're that
One
struggling.
thing, one thing I couldn't eat, Tim, was another thing was turtle.
Oh.
You know, we'd go along the road and your dad would see us, or grandpa would see us snapping turtle. Believe you me, we stopped. And he'd get that snapping turtle and he'd take it home and he'd kill it and dress it out. And I watched him one day dress out that darned old turtle, and I went down there with the dock, and there he was. He'd taken a saw, you know, the bottom shell and the top shell are joined together, different places with part of the shell they're made out of. And he would cut that apart, and then pull it apart, and there that turtle laid with his top shell gone, and his body was still in the bottom, and that doggone thing's heart was beating, and his whole top was gone. And then your dad or your grandpa would take that turtle and make soup out of it, and that's one thing I could not eat ever was turtle soup. He liked it.
I remember having that when we lived on Keller Road. That was when I was under the age of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Also, frog legs. He'd go out and get frogs
Mm-hmm.
and cook frog legs.
I like frog legs. They're good. If you not watch them when they're cooking, they're wiggling.
That's what you ate. That's what you ate.
Telephone.
Tim, grab the phone.